like schlop dog shit. Like it's it's unbelievable how far behind the pop historian conversations are in mainstream politics. It's actually unbelievably just dog shit. It's unreal. I think I said before, like I came away from Finkelstein feeling like I probably had gotten to like 30 to 50% of his knowledge on this topic after like 6 months of like kind of lazy study. Truly like 1 month of concentrated study, given like all the other streaming and shit that I did. Whereas like walking away from this guy, I feel like I had like 1% of his knowledge. This guy seems like he actually understands what he's talking about. Like when I talk to this guy, he doesn't just have like a collection of quotes. He seems like he has a comprehensive understanding of a whole bunch of shit in this region, which felt, I guess in some ways, like refreshing, like Jesus. Because holy fuck, the conversations internationally are so fucking dodgy. My God.
Because they are sharply divided to 70-something not because of the oil, in spite of the oil. Why? Because they are sharply divided to 70-something clans in Iraq, 4 ethnic groups, Kurds, Arabs, Turkmens, and Persians, 10 religions, only in Iraq, 10 religions, and sects, full of them. So when the society is made out of so many groups, which never became a nation, there is no Iraqi nation. There are Iraqi citizens. But unlike in America, which citizenship makes you an American, here in the Middle East, people belong to us, to our clan, or to our religion, or to our sect, or our people. Otherwise, hell with you. And this is the mindset of the Middle East. And unfortunately, Western Muslims, they come here, and all they know the geography. That Iraq has Euphrates and Tigris and maybe some canals, and that's it. That's what they know. But they don't enter the door of sociology. They don't understand it. Middle Eastern societies work according to totally different rules compared to Western Europe, America. And this is the source of all evil. And this is the source of the failure which we saw in Afghanistan, in Iraq, everywhere when the West started or tried to design countries like Syria, like Lebanon, which were all designed by France between the two world wars. These are nations. Britain, which established Iraq, learned from the East.
Somebody types that this guy's knowledge is very sus. The UAE is 7th in proven oil reserve. 1/3 of GDP is from oil. So when he says that they're successful despite their natural resources, not necessarily because of them, without diving too deep into that, I would believe him when he says this because I think this is a well-known, phenomenon, or I shouldn't say that. It's spoken about. I believe there's literally a name for this, like the curse of natural resources, or the resource curse. Just because your country has a lot of natural resources, that is absolutely no guarantee that your country is going to be successful. There might even be a inverse relationship between it. Destiny, he said Dubai, not the UAE. Is Dubai not big city in the UAE? Am I retarded? Wait, what was the point? Oh, Abu Dhabi has more oil. I don't know what you're saying. I don't know if you're agreeing or disagreeing. I don't even know. Okay, we're gonna listen to this guy.
And world wars. These are mayhems. Britain, which established Iraq, learned from the Free State. And when they came out from the Gulf during the 60s into the 70s, they left behind them clonish states, means Emirates. And this is why Emirates are working, functioning as good countries, not as democracies, they're not democracies. But their culture, the clan culture, actually fits the new state, which is based on the traditional culture. While Syria, Iraq, Libya, Sudan, all are based on Western ideas of socialism, like the Ba'ath Party, both in Iraq and Syria, or liberalism, or democracy, or whatever comes from the West, which doesn't fit the societies of the Middle East. Just like if you try to run your iPhone with the system of Android.
Imagine this guy making that analogy. What the fuck? Also, old Jews love their like slogans or catchphrases, or I don't know what you call the little quips. I think he has quite a few of them. At least I remember having quite a few of them.
It doesn't work.
Why do you think, if you look at a country like Egypt, why do you think Egypt was like relatively stable compared to, say, Yemen when that was?
Egypt went through a process, a very agonizing process of dismemberment of the clans because of the high dam. The high dam, the Aswan Dam, which was built during the 50s by the Soviet Union, in order to modernize the state, because otherwise they had floods because of the Nile, had floods twice a year. But you cannot run a modern country when all the infrastructure is dissolved through the floods twice a year. So they decided to put an end to the floods by building the high dam in Aswan. And all the peasants who once lived on water which they got for free from the Nile, now they have to buy water and fertilizers because it's a desert. But who has money? So they moved to the sea. So millions of Egyptians, since the 60s, 70s, moved from the Egyptian sea to Cairo, to Alexandria, to Komoshin, Aswan, Beirut, or Europe, or America.
Did you talk to him about Jewish supremacism over non-Jews, or did you just let him talk about how bad Muslims are? What, Zero Wave, where are you from? Are you a Muslim that lives in the West? I don't think he said anything bad at all about Muslims yet, has he?
In order to work. So the modern Egypt society is made not by clans, but by individuals who live in Cairo and all these cities.
I'm not a Muslim at all. I'm an atheist, but I can see what he's getting at. Okay. I think you're doing a very weird, like, form of embedded, like, reverse racism. In the West, we have, I think, an ethnocentric view of how societies form and function. And in the West, we assume that the way that we arrange society is the best and goodest way to do it. And when other people claim that other cultures arrange societies differently, you claim that those people are racist haters because they're claiming that another people might organize differently than us, and you assume that different means bad because you have an ethnocentric view of society. Just because somebody says that another group of people organize society in a different way doesn't mean that they're saying it's bad, or that way is bad, or that them doing it differently is bad. And you assuming that is your problem. Okay. I think I actually read, I think it was the first, no, it was a couple paragraphs of the book that he'll recommend me at the end of it, talking about that as an anthropologist or a sociologist, it's incredibly difficult to talk about different cultures, because as soon as you suggest that another culture is like organizes differently, people in the West will immediately call you a racist for saying, no, everybody has to be just like us or else they're worst, which means you're saying they're worse and it's bad. Like, yeah. This guy didn't say that the clan structure is bad, but do you think it is? I think it's probably worse than a liberal democracy. Maybe. It depends. I think that the best clans are better than the worst states, which is what a lot of the clans were competing with when states and state systems began to like pop up. I think that there are things that states do better. So, for instance, constitutionally protecting rights among all people and seeing all citizens as equal under like the eyes of the law, I think that states do that better. I think that clans probably allow for more democracy and more freedom between individuals better. Broadly, like in a very, 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 very broad sense. Overall, I don't know if it's because I'm from the West, I prefer states. I think state organization allows for higher degrees of specialization and more protection for rights spread among society. I think that's better. I think we can do more as mankind that way. But, I think there's pros and cons to different ways that we organize things. I don't know if I would call it Marxist, but it's kind of Egyptian modernization. It's almost that commons, the Nile, were commercialized even under a public body, causing proletarianization of peasants, which superseded feudal ties with individual relations premised on wage labor. Not that this makes him wrong, it's interesting. Also interesting, he calls this painful. It probably was. but it probably massively electrified the country. Maybe. Actually, I think I probably understand what he's talking about because it's going to borrow from this book. I think a lot of this might come from that author, or the author just professes a lot of views that he has and others in his circle have. I think the idea was more that you have like two different types of people in these older Arab societies in the Middle East. You essentially have nomadic people that wander, they'll have like livestock, they might do light agriculture, and you've got more agricultural people. Now, people that do agriculture have a unique set of advantages and disadvantages. One advantage is that they have they can sit in one area and get a lot more stuff to sell. Doing agriculture doesn't have to just be subsistence farming. They get a lot of shit. They can grow a lot of crops, way more than what they individually need. The lifestyle's a bit easier. You don't have to be roaming from place to place. And I think people that do peasantry work like that and agriculture work like that tend to be grouped a lot near like riverbeds and valleys and places that are more I don't know if you say rich in water and stuff like that. So a lot of them tend to gather there in like a larger, or a more denser area of people. Now, while that might be an advantage to agricultural life, nomadic people have advantages in that they get to move around a lot. They tend to be better at combat and the hardiness of being on the road. They can always come into, shops and markets. There's a name for markets. I don't remember what it's called in Arab, but there's a name for these markets that they'll come in to sell things and they'll wander out and do things. They're less susceptible to state control and everything as well. One thing that the author of this book stresses is that early states were not like these awesome things. Like the early state wasn't a bunch of guys with wigs. Oh, Souk might be it. Early guys didn't come together with white powder wigs and draw up constitutions to make early states. Early states were almost always just extortionary schemes. So basically, let's say that I'm looking around and I've got like a nomadic people. Fuck that. How am I going to control nomadic people? I can't tax them. I can't do anything. They're just going to fucking leave. It's controlling them is so irritating. And I need so much of military and army and people. But when I look in the valleys, there are so many people densely packed together with crops that they can't flee from. You can't run away from your crops. You'll die. Your whole family will die. You lose your means of existence. So I know that you're stuck here, and I know that you're densely packed together. I can tax you. It's so much easier than having to deal with nomadic people. Also, one of the ways that nomadic people get shit is by raiding and capturing people, selling them to slavery or taking their shit. So I can go in as a quote-unquote government, but really just like a crime boss or like a mafia lord or whatever the fuck, and I can say, hey, listen, we'll protect you guys, but like we're going to tax the fuck out of you. You're going to give us a lot of shit. And if you're like an agriculture dude, you're just kind of stuck. That's kind of like what you have to do. And that's your form of like an early state, are basically, it's basically tax extortion schemes by stronger rulers that are offering some form of protection in exchange for however much they think they can get away taxing you. Yeah. But the freest and best version of clans, like those people looked down on peasants because they saw them as living materially just a far worse life. It's not like they were people living in teepees or scrounging around for scraps in the wilderness while the people in the States lived in these massive, pre-industrialized houses or whatever. They saw themselves as like, free men that, did their nomadic stuff. They came into markets to trade and they went out and they lived their life. And the peasants stuck in cities were basically just at the whim of whatever dictator was ruling them, with no freedom, no ability to move or travel, no ability to manage their own life, constantly being extorted by tax schemes from a family or from a boss that they had no control over. There was no democracy, no elections, I think, basically, yeah. Are you referring to early states in Africa and the Middle East? Yes. When you say early states, in my recollection, formed around nations, but I might be misunderstanding what you mean. So I think in a historic sense, a nation just refers to like a common group of people, like with a common cause. I don't think the states necessarily formed around nations. I don't have like a big historical reading. It's like a side point in this book on that. The states just tended to form in densely populated areas in like riverbeds and valleys where there were like areas for agriculture, that basically more powerful families would move in and extort the people for taxes and shit, and that's kind of where your early states started to form about. Okay. I think in the U.S. we use state and nations like interchangeably, but I think that anthropologically or sociologically, state and nation they mean very separate things. I think a state refers to like a formal body, like a formal governing entity that has like borders and like representatives and stuff, whereas a nation is just like a group of people, I think, with a common cause and culture, essentially, loosely. The origin of that view in economic theoretical thought may be Olson's Stationary Bandit. A recent economic historical / anthropological treatment is Scott's Against the Grain. It is one view, but highly contested. See, for instance, Allen 2023, which draw on strong empirical evidence implying early states were cooperative, maybe later extortionary, but not at the outset. Okay. Okay.
Moved to the cities. So millions of Egyptians since the 60s, into the 70s, moved from the village to the city, to Cairo, to Alexandria, to Komoshin, Asyut, Beirut, or Europe, or America, in order to work. So the modern Egypt society is made not by clans, but by individuals who live in Cairo and all these cities. And when you live as individuals, you can bring in ideologies like Islamism, as we see tremendously in Egypt. You can bring in Nazism, like the nationalism of Egypt. You can bring all kinds of isms which do not have to compete with tribalism, which it doesn't exist anymore, especially in the cities. Mm-hmm. In the villages, those who remain in the villages are still clannish society, but they are small, they don't have the power is in the city. So the Egyptian city resembles, let's say, New York or San Francisco, much more than Baghdad or Damascus.
Okay. And when you look at a country like Saudi Arabia, there are so many different people that live here. Is this all like...
No. Saudi Arabia is a country which is run by a family, extended family, named Al Saud.
Yeah.
It is all the descendants of the founding king.
This kind of makes more sense. It incorporates in some old knowledge that I would jokingly say on stream, that I feel like whenever somebody contacts me from like Saudi Arabia or the UAE, it feels like every single person is like a fucking prince or something. And I guess it's because the family lines are so extended, which makes more sense, I guess, now, incorporating that into like newer understandings I have, yeah.
Who is the father of today's king, Salman bin Abdulaziz. His name was Abdulaziz, but from the family of Saud. And this is why the name of the country, Saudi, Saudi Arabia. And as long as this clan, named the Saudi clan, is united, consolidated, and ruling the country, nobody can have any issue with it.
Maybe it's just me, but when you say state, I think USA. Could you give examples of ancient states/nations that align with your description? So like a nation, like I think Jews would have been described as like a nation of people, or there might be like nations of people that don't have states. Like today, in modern senses, I think maybe like the Kurdish people might be considered a nation. But I mean, like I think today, largely speaking, nation and state is just used interchangeably because we organize ourselves internationally by states. Like we don't think of these things as separate concepts anymore. But in like the early, I think they started to change a lot in the late 1800s, early 1900s, I think it started to change a lot. But I think roughly, maybe.
Of course, they opposition. They have two oppositions. One in the south, which Bin Laden came from, and one, the Shi'i community, which lives in Saudi Arabia, who lives in the east, next to Bahrain, to Fuf, this part of the country. However, in Saudi Arabia, the name of the religious group is Wahhabism, because they are part of this sect, kind of religious thinking. And according to the Wahhabism, the Shia is some kind of infidelity to that degree.
Sure.
By the way, this is why they look at the Persians, at Iran, as people who always came out of Islam. This is part of the problem, which unfortunately people do not understand the depth of the enmity between Saudi Arabia and Iran. But it goes to this area as well.
Yeah, I guess my question is, so I don't know the clan makeup of all the people of Saudi Arabia, but I imagine that you have your ruling family. Why is it that clan was able to rule the entire country instead of having to split the country?
This is actually a combination of clans,
yeah,
which the founding father actually married one of the daughters of the leaders of all the clans which he annexed to his kingdom.
The Shia-Sunni split because they disagree. Who is the rightful inheritor or descendant of Muhammad? Listen. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like the Sunni-Shia split shit is like only talked about in the West. I don't feel like when you dive into history or when you talk to anybody in these regions and you look at the countries in the conflict, I feel like that Sunni-Shia split thing is literally just a thing that we talk about in the West. I don't think anybody actually gives a fuck about any of that in these areas. Like people have their different kind of like sects. Or whether they are Sunnis or whether they believe that their particular leaders came from Muhammad or whatever. But that like obsession of like, are they Sunni or Shia? I think is like that's a hugely like Western projection over like people think that that's how all the Middle East is divided up. Whereas I think what he's arguing here in terms of like differentiation of families or differentiation of countries is way more important.
One of the daughters of the leaders of all the clans which he annexed to his kingdom. He had dozens of wives. And that's why all these tribes, they won't rebel against somebody whose mother is there. Her children will be emirs, means princes, or even kings. So
There's got to be something more that would hold it together, though, right? I can't imagine that just America's got to be like.
To begin with, I'm talking about 100 years ago. He united the kingdom with marriage. This is the way in the Middle East which you show your allegiance. You give him your daughter. This is the Middle East. 100 years ago, daughters were not asked so much with whom they want to be married. And in some cases, or many cases in the Middle East, until this very day, girls are those who will be married with their cousins, second cousin or third cousin, but definitely in the clan, because the other clan is the enemy. You won't give your daughter to your enemy. How come? They are mush minna, as you say in Arabic, not from us. So this is, by the way, price is tremendous. And in Saudi Arabia, you are not allowed to marry a lady unless you both take a test for the Ministry of Health. And only with a license you can get married.
Is that actually true in Saudi Arabia? Do you need a license to get married? I have no idea. It's clear Destiny doesn't know shit about the Middle East, LOL. It's only talked about in the West. It's so funny. I wish I could just permaban everybody that like obsesses over the religious part. So like all the non-serious fucking retards. Like I don't know. Listen, I could be wrong. Link me something and demonstrate that I'm wrong instead of just saying that. Every single Muslim that I asked this question to kind of laughed it off. Like nobody even really seriously engaged with it that much. And I mean, like, also you can see like the political realities too. Like Hamas is a Sunni organization, but they're supported and they fight alongside essentially like the Houthis that are a form of Shia. I forget what the Houthi people are called, or Hezbollah or Iran, like the Ayatollah, like Shia countries. Like the idea that there's like this hugely strict like Shia Sunni thing just doesn't seem to play out as much. I think it has more to do with like the countries that people are from or the groups of people that people are supporting. If you got something different, then feel free to link me or whatever. But I know that people just get like. The problem is people have so many like personal narratives, like white people from the West, so many personal narratives wrapped into like a lot of the religious shit. I just don't give a fuck that much. I could be wrong, but like nobody's ever linked me or demonstrated how people just get like really fucking ass pained when you don't buy into their particular take on this. But
in order not to perpetuate genetic problems.
Okay. Why do you think, when you look at the Palestinians today in Israel, what would prevent them from engaging in, I guess, a similar sort of like either through marriage or something else of being more united? Why do you think it's best for them to work in separate, kind of like Emiratis, I guess, or Emirates?
I'm not telling them what to do. I, as a researcher, go out and see how they behave. I see a situation that, let's say, in Judea and Samaria, what people call the West Bank. If you tell me the family name of somebody, I'll tell you where he lives. If his name is Jabari or Kawasme or Natche, Tamimi or Abu Snena, he lives in Hebron. If his name is Masri or Tukan or Shaka, he lives in Nablus. If his name is Karmi, he lives in Tulkarem. If his name is Arikat, he lives either in Jericho or in another place which is the extension of this. And that's it. Means this is a clannish society. Because in the clan system, clan mindset, the whole is the village and the tribe, or the clan. This is the whole. If you Protestant and you live within another clan, you will forever be viewed as a foreigner. Moshe, and the chance they let you marry one of their daughters are very low. And in most cases, they will let you marry a lady with, let's say, short legs.
He says this. I wish I could go back now and interview all these people now with all the stuff I know. I don't think I found. I think I only asked like one or two people. I didn't get this feeling. Somebody who lives in Hebron wouldn't let their daughter marry somebody who lives in like Nablus or Jenin, or I don't know. He says this, but I don't know how true this is. I feel like I would want to go back and talk to a ton of different. There are so many more questions, but I don't want to do this forever. I don't want to be that Israel-Palestine guy.
Let you marry one of their daughters are very low. And in most cases, they will let you marry a lady with, let's say, a short leg.
Do you think that Arabs in Israel, do you think they share similar feelings, or do you think not?
The Arabs in Israel, who are like 20% of our population, are what they call in sociology a society in transition. Because on one side, their background is the Arab world, the Islamic world, which is very clannish, and also Islam, as what to say. By the way, Islam is rather young.
Michelle says you can't make a strong opinion by interviewing people. Thank you. My God. I had no idea. I had no fucking idea. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for cluing me in. I thought I could just generalize everything based on 2 or 3 people tops. You will never have a unified Palestine because the people in the West Bank and Gaza are 2 different people that do not speak the same type of Arabic. I'm Lebanese and I speak different Arabic than some Syrian Jordan. I don't think that is true at all. You said you're Lebanese? Lebanese from where? I've never in my life heard or even heard it. No, there's no. Actually, no, you're wrong. No, that people who speak Arabic in the West Bank wouldn't understand somebody who speaks Arabic in Gaza? There's no shot that's correct. I don't believe that. No way.
Only 14th century, compared to the clan system, which is already, who knows how many, hundreds of thousands of years. So some of them definitely are still clannish, some of them are Islamic, some of them are modern because of the friction between them and the Jewish modern liberal society as we are. Yet the problem is that
I mean, people understand all Arabic generally, but there are substantial differences. Yeah, sure. Yeah, there are going to be substantial differences, but a lot of this is probably ties in geographically how far away places are. Like somebody in Tunisia might have a harder time, understanding somebody in the fucking mountains of Iraq, but somebody from the Gaza Strip isn't going to be able to understand somebody from the West Bank. That somebody from Gaza City isn't going to be able to understand somebody from East Jerusalem. That's no, fuck off.
It's like a half-baked cake. Some parts are closer to us. Some of them are serving in the army because they are Israelized, I would say, all the way. While others, who let's suppose belong to the Islamic movement, especially the northern faction, which is very hardcore, those whose art they not only they don't join the army, they consider the state the same. And just accept. And still they are citizens and they get all the benefits of being a citizen.
Why do you think that for international media, or at least when I hear international advocacy for Palestinians, do you think that the world community that is pro-Palestinian, or even the Palestinians that are talking about Palestinian issues internationally, are they missing that clan aspect of Palestinians living in Nablus or Ramallah or Hebron? Or because I don't ever hear that internationally when they speak. It's always about like a nation or a country.
It's not politically correct. We talk about clans. What are they? Right? It doesn't sound politically correct in Western ears, but this is the situation in the Middle East. What can I do? Look, the so-called Palestinians are carrying names.
When he says so-called Palestinians, this will be vocabulary that I'll pick up more on through my being here. But now I understand when he says so-called Palestinians. It's his way of kind of like dismissing the idea that that Palestine represents a cohesive group of people or a nation or a state or anything more than just people that have kind of like wandered into the territory post, I guess, 48 or post 1900 or something.
This is the situation in the Middle East. What I can do? What can I do? Look, the so-called Palestinians are carrying names like Al-Masri, means the Egyptian, Masarwa, Egyptians in plural, Fayoum, from Fayoum in Egypt, Ismaili, down on the Suez Canal, Al-Khorani, from the Khoran in Syria, Al-Sorani, from Sor in Tyre in Lebanon, Sidawi from Sidon in Lebanon, Al-Hijazi, Hijaz is in Saudi Arabia, Mecca and Medina. Many of them carry names until this very day, which testify that these people are not originally from here.
Different dialects, I understand them, but some words are a little different. Someone Gaza sounds Egyptian, and someone in the West Bank sounds Jordanian. I promise to understand if you were some Syrians. Okay.
Wow.
Please make a YouTube video. I'll probably post all these interviews like individually, I think. I'm just like going over all of it. Because I don't know if I can even make a cohesive video of everything by the end. So we're just walking through it all. I'll just upload me reacting to it, and I'll probably upload all the raw interviews. It's unlisted, so you can listen to them or cite them or whatever if you want. But
Mecca and Medina. Many of them carry names until this very day, which testify that these people are not originally from here. So what are they doing here? They came to work. Since the Zionist movement started to come to this country towards the end of the 19th century, there were jobs here. Building Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv was established in 1909, still when the Ottomans were here, before the First World War. So many Arabs, Bedouins, came to work in Tel Aviv because there was jobs and income. And they became Palestinians. Okay, even the Arab world knows their origin, because when they ran out from here in the hostilities of 1948, the War of Independence, they usually ran back to the countries which they came from. But those countries, under the flag of the Arab League, decided not to allow them to go back to the places which they originally came from, and they kept them in the refugee camps until this very day. And unfortunately, the world still resuscitates this problem of the refugees. Where in the world you see refugees from the 40s? And their great-grandchildren today are refugees. There is no such a thing in the whole world. Because according to UNHCR, United Nations High Commission for Refugees, you can be refugees up to 10 years. Not even one day more. Up to 10 years.
I don't believe that's true. I've never heard that before. I think this point is incorrect. UN High Commission Refugees, refugee, 10 years. I've never heard this before. I don't think this is true. There are issues with how the UN does Palestinian refugeedom, or refuginess, or whatever. But I don't think that there's anything that says that you're only refugee for 10 years. I've never heard this before. If anybody has a link for that, you can find it, but I've never seen that before.
Secondly, you cannot inherit your children. Wait until you make children, until you sell. And thirdly, when you have a citizenship of any country in the world, you're not a refugee anymore. And lo and behold, in Jordan, for example, you have many citizens of the Kingdom of Jordan, yet they consider themselves to be refugees from here, and the world is paying for this. Mind-boggling.
Why do you think we even look at like Palestine?
That's true. It's a very weird, bizarre world. But in Jordan, I believe it's like over half of the Palestinian refugees that live in Jordan that are registered as refugees with the UN RWA. More than half of them, I think, have Jordanian citizenship. So it's very strange that they have Jordanian citizens who are also refugees. It's very weird. Somebody said Lebanon as well as Syria. I don't believe Lebanon and Syria ever gave Palestinian citizenship ever. However, Jordan, I believe, granted citizenship to all of the Palestinians that lived in the West Bank when they annexed the West Bank in 52, after they conquered it in 48. Jordanian annexation, West Bank. Began in 1950. Oh wait, administration. When did they annex it? Maybe it was 1950? Oh, in April 24th, 1950 is when they annexed it. And then I believe they gave citizenship to everybody living there when it happened. When Jordan transferred its full citizenship rights to the residents of the West Bank, the annexation more than tripled the population of Jordan from 400,000 to 1.3 million. Why don't you play alto anymore? Just wondering since I want your background. Because playing horn, you have like upkeep when you're on the turn, fuck that, and it's loud as fuck. Around 3/4 of the over 2 million Palestinian refugees in Jordan hold full Jordanian citizenship. Yeah, that's kind of wild. It's a little bit wacky.
Leaders, so people like Abbas or people like Arafat, why is it that they seem to be so oriented? Where do you think their desire for a state or a country comes from that's so separated from this idea of clans or families or where people actually originate from?
First of all, Mahmoud Abbas was born in Tzfat, which is in the Galilee.
This guy mind fucked me so hard. I walked out of this interview like, fuck. Holy shit.
That's so separated from this idea of clans or families or where these people actually originate from.
First of all, Mahmoud Abbas was born in Tzfat, which is in the Galilee. Neither is in Samaria, let alone Gaza. They see him as a foreigner who was brought from Tunisia, in 1993 because of the Oslo agreements, and he's not one of them. This is why he doesn't go to visit neither Hebron nor Nablus, let alone Gaza. Once he was in Gaza, and the bullet passed 10 centimeters near his face and killed one of his bodyguards.
Was that true? Gaza assassination attempt Abbas. I wonder if this was after 2004 when Abbas was trying to get Hamas under control. France 24, Euro News, Palestine Chronicle. One of the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, is bodyguard was shot dead in an assassination of the leader after he was given a 24-hour ultimatum by the sons of Abu Yandal to declare a global war against Israel. This was in 22-3, so this was just like last year. But this wasn't in Gaza, was it? Who grew up in the Middle East and is from a Middle Eastern background. My experience of the things he says about clans are true for less developed Eastern or extra-urban parts of the Middle East. For example, Eastern Syria, socialized in Iraq. This is much less the case for cities where social class, religion, ethnicity are much more important. For example, there's a large class of urban and suburban city dwellers who don't identify with any clan. This also helps explain some of the differences between the Gulf Arab states and Levantine states. The Gulf states gain wealth while they still have high social cohesiveness and were predominantly defined by tribal politics in the Levant. Other social factors, such as ideology, social class, sex, dominated politics because they were relatively more developed in populous countries up until 30 to 40 years ago. Also beneficial that the Gulf states are much more homogenous. Oh, this is what he's talking about. Shots fired near Abbas. Gunfire erupted Sunday in the tent set up for mourners of Yasser Arafat just after his successor as PLO leader arrived. Witnesses and hospital officials said. Okay, This is why I was wondering if it was in 2004 after, because of him coming over as a new leader. I think Abbas spent 2004, 2005 trying to get Hamas to be a little bit more chill and was unsuccessful in doing so. So it would have made sense if there was a lot of tension there with him being there. But I mean, it could be anything. An Abbas bodyguard and a security officer were killed and 6 people were wounded in Sunday's shooting in Gaza City. Interim Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas escaped unharmed after militants from his Fatah movement opened fire near him in an attempt to try to with mourners for Yasser Arafat from his own political party. Yikes. Yikes. Some 30 or 40 gunmen were involved in the men up in the mask. Police declined to say Monday whether arrests had been made. The Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, a violent group with ties to Fatah, denied it sent the gunmen. And the rival Hamas and Islamic Jihad groups were not considered suspects. Policy shift. An Israeli official indicated the Jewish state was reassessing its policy on its plan to pull troops and 8,800 Jewish settlers out of the Gaza Strip and full West Bank settlements. Disengagement hadn't happened yet. Israeli and Palestinian officials alike have expressed fears that an evacuation from Gaza without coordination would bring chaos to the Gaza Strip, where militant groups have been vying for control in recent months. Those rivalries burst into the open minutes after Abbas entered the Gaza City, where about 10,000 people, including about 3,000 armed men, most of them police officers, gathered Sunday. Abbas, accompanied by Gaza strongman Mohammed Dalan, and surrounded by security guards, shook hands with mourners. Moments later, at least 20 gunmen, held high, barged into the street. Abbas and Dalan are agents for the Americans. Abbas's bodyguards hustled him into a corner as frightened mourners scrambled over plastic chairs. Abbas was taken to Palestinian headquarters. Abbas tried in the past as prime minister to persuade militants to halt attacks on Israel, and he succeeded briefly. Militants signaled Sunday that they are not interested in a new ceasefire. In a parade in Gaza City, mass militants from Fatah unveiled a new rocket, which they had claimed had an extended range that could reach the southern Israeli city of Ashkelon. The long green Al Yasser 1 rocket, named after Arafat, was shown to a cheering crowd as Palestinian security forces looked on. Bro, he got you. He just got you so hard. Good luck. Damn, okay. This is probably what he was referring to, I would imagine.
Okay, so he won Nablus in 1993 because of the Oslo agreements, and he's not one of them. This is why he doesn't go to visit neither Hebron nor Nablus, let alone Gaza. Once he was in Gaza, and the bullet passed 10 centimeters near his face and killed one of his bodyguards. Okay, so he understood it. He's persona non grata in Gaza, undesirable person. Okay, so he doesn't visit Gaza anymore, and doesn't visit neither Hebron nor Nablus, not anyone, nowhere else. He goes out from his office in Ramallah only to go abroad. Show me another president in the world who functions like this. Now, he was elected in 2006 for 4 years. We are today 14 years after this, because every year the head of the PLO, Abu Mazen, renews the authority of the PA president, Abu Mazen.
Abu Mazen is just another name for Mahmoud Abbas, named after his child. Anytime somebody has the name Abu whatever, the whatever name is the name of their child. So when you hear Abu Mazen, it's the same thing as Mahmoud Abbas. Sometimes people refer to Yasser Arafat as Abu Ammar, I think, but it's just people, I don't know why they use different names to sound cool, I guess.
With his signature. Okay, this is the democracy which.
Sure, I understand.
So he is illegitimate.
Yeah.
He is totally illegitimate in the eyes of the Palestinians, and he's acceptable only as long as he brings them money. The whole thing is about money. Arafat, formerly, was born in Egypt. And when he became older, he returned to his Egyptian language, and which is totally different dialect. And he was accepted only as long as he continued to struggle against it. Even when he was signed on the loan of the White House in September 1993, the Oslo Agreement with Israel joined the uniform as a combatant. He signed a peace agreement. He said always,
Let's talk about this
this
picture.
peace agreement is Hudaybiyah peace. Hudaybiyah peace means in Islam temporary peace,
Yeah, until you can
which
fight
you
again.
give, which a Muslim is allowed to give infidel, whether you're Jew, Christians, or whatever, only as long as the enemy is too strong, invincible, deterring, and dangerous to mess with. In this case, you can give him temporary peace. According to the Islamic mindset, it's called the Salam Hudaybiyah, means the peace of Hudaybiyah. According to the clan system, or clan laws, it's called Hudna. Hudna. So, either Hudna or Hudaybiyah peace, this is what he said to his people every day. That this peace is only temporary peace. And yes, he violated this in 2000. When he thought that we are weak, that we ran out of Lebanon in the days when Ehud Barak was the prime minister. So then he started the second intifada, started to blow up our buses and our restaurants and people in the street. More than 1,000 people were killed gradually by Arafat and his gangs. And
Wait, fuck. Is this mic totally dead?
not only this, he started the PA, and the idea was that he will fight instead of us because we currently couldn't. And this was the whole reason of establishing the PA, that Arafat will come in order to fight the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad without Bagatz and without B'Tselem, means without the Supreme Court and without the
rules,
the human rights organizations. Okay, but he didn't mean at all. Look, what he mean? He actually demonstrates. And this scarf, and this the PLO flag. On one side, they said Al-Quds land, Jerusalem is ours. Since when Jerusalem is ours? When was Jerusalem a capital of anything connected to the Arab or the Islamic world? Not for one day. But the other side of the scarf is this, Palestine. This is why you need Arabic. Palestine, from the river to the sea. So where is Israel?
Not on that. Yeah.
Maybe in the sea, among the sharks. Okay? And this is Arafat. And unfortunately, we Israelis, especially the left side of the political left, they believe in it. And this why no left. There's almost no left. Because they fell in this trap. Because they were warned time and again and again and again. You are deceived by this man. And you know what?
Can I ask a quick question before we start? I'm curious. So let's say that that's the thought process that people who are negotiating from these positions, people like Arafat, aren't to be trusted.
What's your opinion on Arafat? You said the trip made you lose a different. Arafat was a general, and that's it. That's all he was. He never should have been the leader of the Palestinian people. Palestinians are in a great deal of trouble when it's but he still has, people I spoke to, he still has very widespread support in the Palestinian world, but
Can I ask a quick question before this starts? Curious. So, let's say that that's the thought process that people who are negotiating for these positions, people like Arafat, aren't to be trusted. Do you think that that would have prevented, like, Israel from making peace with Egypt or Israel from making peace with Jordan if that same mentality had persisted? Or why do you think those were different?
Look, when Sadat made the peace with us in 1979, he had a fatwa. Fatwa means religious ruling by the Al-Azhar, the supreme religious authority of Egypt, which allowed him to...
okay, I tried to Google this afterwards. I couldn't find any information on this. Is it true that Anwar Sadat, president of Egypt, had a fatwa from some sort of imam, I don't even know who can issue them, to make peace with Israel? This would have been in for what, 76 is when the talks started, I think, till 79? Or, yeah, I'm curious if there's any information on this. I don't know where we even begin to look for this. Or if it's even like reported in fucking Western media. But if anybody has any evidence, like where to find this, I'm curious if this is true. I mean, obviously he's saying it, but...
make peace with the Zionists with Israel, just like our Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace be upon him, gave to the infidels of Mecca in Hudaybiyah. Between Israel and Egypt is based on the same idea of temporary peace, which will last only as long as Israel is powerful, dangerous, invincible. When will this take? I don't know. So far, this peace exists. What will be on the day which they view or think that we are weak? I have no idea. But what they prepare in Sinai doesn't give good thoughts about what the intentions of the Jews are.
Do you think that Hussein in Jordan, do you think he felt the same way, that all of that peace was only temporary?
I didn't find the mention of Hudaybiyah in the peace between us and Jordan. Mm-hmm. And this is why the majority of the citizens of Jordan objected. They always say, your peace agreement with the ruling family. And the ruling family, don't forget, is not Jordanian. The ruling family is from the Hijaz. They were expelled by the Saudis. And the British gave them the Transjordan Emirate in 1924, which turned to be the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. And the majority are like less than 100 people, this family. They control the country with 80, 90% people who find themselves as Palestinians, who have nothing to do with this plan. And the rest are Bedouins, who also do not share much with Israel. Only maybe the language, but not much. So this is the main problem of the Jordanian kingdom, that it is actually based on a family which will rule the country only as long as the army and the intelligence and the security are with them, because they are vicious. The Palestinians tried in 1970 to rebel against the system, and the kingdom slaughtered them. Thousands of them. Black September. So this is...
Do you think the dozens upon dozens of tunnels from Gaza to Egypt that were intact in Rafah leads to questions on the Egypt-Israel peace? No, I don't think so. Just very vibe-like understanding, because I have no in-depth knowledge of anything that goes on in Egypt or what comes from Cairo. I would say that my guess would be that it's probably pretty easy to bribe an Egyptian soldier for shit, and that's probably how most of those tunnels end up being not reported or looked over. I seriously doubt that the government of Egypt has a goal that they have an interest in undermining the government of Israel, especially not to align with the government of Hamas. I don't believe that. I think that their treatment of the border on Rafah, I think, is evidence of that. Yeah, I don't buy that. I would need to see more evidence of that. Oh shit! You fucking found this. So this what he referenced here was true. The December 2001 bombings in Israel immediately put... Would those arguments hold? For centuries, Muslim rulers have paid the salaries of religious figures and used them to boost their own legitimacy. The highest religious leaders of Egypt and Saudi Arabia are government-appointed officials. Oh, fuck, this is interesting, too, because back in that, when I talked about that book, The Clan shit, sometimes there were, like, religious families, and they wouldn't really fight. Sometimes they would be used to settle disputes. Or you would find somebody who's got an equal distance away from you in kinship to settle a dispute with somebody else. So, like, you're, like, fifth cousin removed. If he was the fifth cousin removed of the family you were fighting with, he could come in to settle the dispute because he's equal distance from both of you. But then also, yeah, there were, like, religious families that I think explicitly did not fight or take part in armed hostilities, but they were just seen as religious families, and they would also mediate disputes as well. So that's interesting that I guess it kind of in a way carries over here. Highest religious leaders of Egypt and Saudi Arabia are government-appointed officials. Any edict emanating from these religious bodies inevitably reflects state policy. Both governments tap their religious establishments whenever they need religious backing for controversial policies. In the past, the Sheikh Al-Azhar, the head of the Azhar Theological Seminary, provided Anwar Sadat with a religious edict or fatwa and supported the peace treaty Sadat signed with Israel. During the Kuwait War, the late Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Abd al-Aziz bin Baz, ruled that the presence of foreign troops was permitted on Saudi soil to defend the kingdom from Saddam Hussein. He also issued an extremely controversial Fatwa in 95, ruling that the Sharia permitted peace with Israel under certain conditions. The dependence of the cleric on the rulers has sometimes eroded the credibility of state religious officials and their edicts. In any event, no Muslim authority exercised a kind of papal authority over his co-religionists. And so it was not surprising that the declarations of Tantawi and Sabil, far from ending the debate, actually intensified it.
Jordan. To say that this family will forever be the kingdom of Jordan, I have no idea.
Okay. Curious, you mentioned something for Arafat. Do you believe that Arafat, when you said that he kicked off or started the second Intifada, do you think that he actually like planned and went through and started that? Or do you think he just kind of like hoped it would happen? Or
We have all the proofs. There are books which were written based on documents which were found.
I asked a couple other people when I was in Israel this question. I don't know if this is still open to debate or not. Some seem to say, I think Ben Ami said that, yeah, there was a little bit more information that came out about it. But I think it's uncontested, it's undeniable that that Arafat enjoyed the violence and definitely didn't do anything to end it. He definitely enjoyed that violence and was glad that it was happening and wanted to take advantage of it. But maybe the rest of it. Ooh.
In his headquarters that he actually planned. And look, he never meant to take really care of the terror. We know the revolving door means when we told him to catch something from Hamas, he would keep the man during the day in, let's say, in one of the police stations, and for the night he was released to go home in order to come back the next morning. This revolving door. That's what he had. And he conned us day and night. And unfortunately, the Israelis under Peres and Rabin and Begin, all these left, they believed him that he will fight Hamas without Bagatz and without B'Tselem, which this is why they lost the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Israelis understood that he actually.
Okay, challenging question then. Do you ever feel like, or do you think that Palestinians have a justification for feeling like on the other end, while Israel might complain that Arafat never meant to fight against Hamas or fight against any of the terroristic elements of Palestinian society, that Israel never meant to stop the settlement expansions, the outpost building, the terrorist attacks like in the Cave of the Patriarchs. Do you think that Palestinians have a right to feel that type of upsetness, or do you think that it's a bit different on how it plays out for both sides?
Look, I'm looking for solutions which correspond with sociology. Otherwise, you get another Syria or Iraq or Sudan or Libya here.
I should have pushed harder on this question here. This is the very first interview I did, so I didn't have as much confidence yet, but I could have pushed harder on asking him for an answer to this.
The only solution which will give them stability, us security, and them as well security, is the Emirate solution. The PA, of course, is against it because it means to dismember the PA. Because but the PA, don't forget, is anyway an artificial structure which we built, which doesn't correspond with the sociology. The only thing is the Emirates in the cities of Judea and Samaria, Hebron, for the clans of Hebron, Jericho, Ramallah, Jenin, Nablus, Tulkarm, Kalkilia. Israel should forever remain in the rural areas, offer Israeli citizenship to the villagers. This will give them stability, just like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Because this is the clan system in the Middle East. The clan definitely, or usually, takes care of its own interests. And if they understand that they are now, have the choice between.
Can you explain his answer? Well, he didn't answer my question. He's just saying he's a sociologist, so he's just looking for solutions that correspond to the conditions that the culture of the Palestinians would allow, essentially. But my question was like, do you think that they have a reason to feel slighted or mistrusting of like Israel as a country?
In messing with us or flourishing like Dubai?
Because he had no problem earlier basically talking about the liberal politicians and why they failed and why the liberals or the left essentially failed in Israel and why people now prefer the right. But then when I asked him this on the Palestinian side, he didn't seem as willing to engage. But again, this is the first interview I did, so I wasn't as confident like doing these yet or asking challenging questions. And I didn't even have the information. And also, I don't think I did any challenging interviews while I was here. Most of it is just like asking kind of like probing questions and whatnot. I'm like debating anybody here, so.
Its own interests. And if they understand that they are now, have the choice between messing with us or flourishing like Dubai, they will choose to be Dubai.
Okay.
And will postpone the desires to see us evaporating.
Sure.
Because we are not.
One more sociology question, and I'm curious. Do you feel like after 1967, do you think that the mind of Israel or the Jewish mind or the Zionist mind, do you think it changed or became more ambitious in a good or bad way for territory in the West Bank? Or do you think that
Look,
desire was always there?
What happened in 1967 is actually the remedy for injustice which happened in 1948. Look, Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a Jewish capital for over 3,000 years.
Destiny, this is his entire career, and he argues this on Arab TV shows against much more hostile interviewers. I don't think you would have been able to gotcha him on any of them. I'm not trying to gotcha. I just would want to hear a more direct answer.
Way before Christianity came to the world, way before Islam came to the world. So Jerusalem should be under Jewish rule. I'm not denying any right of anybody else. Churches should flourish. Mosques should flourish, even the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which originally is not here. The original Al-Aqsa is in Jorana, according to Islamic sources, not in Jerusalem. But never mind, I think it was brought to Jerusalem.
I think one of the hardest arguments